Picture this. You are a football supporter. You have traveled thousands of miles to be in this stadium. You have paid more for your ticket than any World Cup in history has ever asked of you. The match is alive. Your team has momentum. The crowd is building. The noise is rising. The opposition are rattled. The next 30 seconds could change everything. And then a referee blows his whistle, reaches into his pocket, holds up a small board with a water droplet on it, and 4,000 people in your section start booing. Not the referee, not a decision, not a foul or a booking or a disallowed goal, a water break, a 3-minute pause for hydration mandated by FIFA, regardless of the temperature, regardless of the conditions, regardless of what is happening on the pitch at that exact moment. Happening in air-conditioned stadiums in Dallas and Atlanta and Vancouver as certainly as it happens in the open heat of Kansas City and Boston. Happening when it is 34 degrees on the pitch, and happening when it is 21. This is the story of the one FIFA decision at the 2026 World Cup that has managed to unite players, fans, coaches, meteorologists, and broadcast critics in a single shared reaction. And that reaction has been booing. Welcome to the hydration break controversy, which 18 days into this tournament and with the round of 32 now fully underway, is showing absolutely no signs of going away. Let's start at the beginning, because FIFA had a reason for this policy, and the reason deserves to be stated fairly before we get into everything that has gone wrong with it. Going back to December last year, when FIFA announced that all 104 matches at this World Cup would include mandatory 3-minute hydration breaks midway through each half, the governing body framed the decision clearly. Player welfare, heat protection, drawing on the experience of the FIFA Club World Cup held in the United States last summer, where temperatures soared into the high 30s across multiple venues, and coaches were cutting training sessions short under official heat warnings. Then Chelsea coach Enzo Maresca had to stop training early in Philadelphia under what was classified as a code red heat warning. Atletico Madrid's Marcos Llorente said after playing in Pasadena that he felt terribly hot, that his toes were sore, that his nails were hurting. The heat across American venues in summer is genuinely extreme, and the risk of exertional heat illness, which carries genuine medical consequences including cardiac strain, neurological impairment, and muscle breakdown, is not theoretical. It is documented and real. FIFA also cited a principle of consistency. Rather than leaving breaks to referee discretion or applying temperature thresholds that would produce breaks at some venues but not others, they opted for uniformity. Every match, every venue, every half, the same break applied the same way so that no team ever has a different preparation expectation going into a game. On those terms, the argument makes sense. You can see the logic in it. Here's where things get interesting. The breaks happen at the 22nd minute of each half, not approximately, the 22nd minute, regardless of what is happening on the pitch at that exact moment. And what that means in practice is something that nobody in FIFA's planning meetings appears to have fully thought through. The 22nd minute is not a quiet moment in a football match. It is inside the period when teams are still feeling each other out, when transitions are rapid, when the first genuine wave of attacking pressure often arrives. It is not halftime. It is not a natural rest point. It is the middle of a half that was building towards something.
And when the whistle goes for the break at that moment, everything stops. The crowd's noise collapses. The players walk to the sidelines. The coaching staff gather them around tactical boards and begin issuing instructions. Because if you have 3 minutes in which the referee has officially paused the match, you would be negligent not to use it. The atmosphere, built carefully by 40,000 people across 22 minutes of football, deflates in the time it takes a player to reach the advertising boards and accept a bottle from the team kit man. Virgil van Dijk, the Netherlands captain, speaking after his team's draw with Japan in the air-conditioned stadium in Arlington, Texas, was the player whose words captured the specific absurdity of this most clearly. He said, with a laugh that carried a distinct edge to it, that hydration breaks were a bit interesting. He said he had been watching almost all the games up until that point, and every time the break came, it went to commercial. He said he didn't really like it. He said that if it is genuinely hot, obviously it would be good to have them, but that you have to look at it in every game separately. The stadium in Arlington, Texas, where Van Dyke said this, is one of the most comprehensively air-conditioned sports venues in the United States. The temperature inside it during matches is controlled. It does not approach the heat levels that pose any documented risk to player health. The break happened there anyway. Didier Deschamps, whose France side are one of the tournament's frontrunners, said the breaks were splitting the halves in a way that had turned two halves into something that felt like four quarters. He said it before the tournament. He has repeated the sentiment since. He is not alone. Uruguay manager Marcelo Bielsa, a coach with one of the most analytically sophisticated minds in football, a man who has spent decades studying how the game functions and why, was considerably more pointed at his press conference ahead of Uruguay's match against Cape Verde. He said that playing 4 periods instead of 2 alters what he called the culturally constructed conception of how to interpret football. He said it adds nothing and takes away a lot. And then he said something that is particularly important because it comes from one of the game's deepest thinkers rather than from a player reacting emotionally. He said that when the decision was made to divide matches into 4 periods, no thought was given to the effect it might have on what makes football such a captivating sport. Instead, he said, thought was given to other repercussions, which he declined to name or analyze. He didn't name what those other repercussions were. He didn't need to. Everyone listening understood. A 30-second advertising slot during a World Cup match on Fox Sports in the United States costs between $200,000 and $300,000. During USA matches and later stages of the tournament, that figure can reach $750,000 per slot. The 3-minute hydration break, applied 4 times per match across 104 matches, creates 4 additional, guaranteed, predictable advertising windows per game at every venue, in every temperature, whatever is happening on the pitch. A senior meteorologist who analyzes weather conditions at sporting events was direct when asked whether the breaks were scientifically necessary across all venues. He said that New York, California, Miami, and the Mexican stadiums have been hot enough to genuinely warrant breaks. But, he said, there is no justification for breaks at the air-conditioned venues like Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, or Vancouver. He added that he understood FIFA claimed to have applied the breaks across all games for the sake of consistency, but that it was hard to see it as anything other than a commercial venture worth millions of dollars in advertising to American broadcasters and potentially billions globally. That assessment is from a meteorologist, not a football commentator, not a critic with an agenda, a person who analyzes heat and weather for a living, saying plainly that the scientific justification for breaks in climate-controlled stadiums doesn't hold up. England manager Thomas Tuchel, speaking ahead of his team's group stage match, was thoughtful rather than dismissive about the policy. He acknowledged the breaks can be helpful in genuine heat, but he said the universal application had altered how matches flow in a way that had surprised him. He said that he had experienced hydration breaks before in his coaching career when conditions genuinely demanded them, and that they had been shorter and used only when needed. In this format, he said, every match is segmented into repeated phases, which makes it harder to build sustained momentum. He said, and this is the line that most captured what football feels like when the breaks land at the wrong moment, that if you do not have a break, it is just the battle on the field between the players and the teams. The battle is being interrupted, by design, every match, every half. Norway's head coach Ståle Solbakken raised a dimension that is less discussed, but practically significant. He pointed out that the second-half hydration break is scheduled at the 67th minute. Most coaches make their primary second-half substitutions between the 60th and 70th minutes. The break now falls precisely in that window, which means that substitutions and tactical changes are being coordinated around the break rather than around the match itself. The substitution timing that was built around the rhythm of the game is now being shaped by the FIFA schedule of commercial windows.
He also made a point about internal contradiction in FIFA's approach to this tournament. The governing body has introduced several other rule changes designed to speed the game up, reducing time wasting, encouraging faster restarts, giving referees more tools to manage deliberate delays. All of those changes are oriented toward the same goal: more continuous, faster football. And then 4 compulsory 3-minute stoppages are added per match. He said it speaks against itself. Now here's the other angle, the one that is less represented in the commentary but deserves equal time. There are voices in football who think the breaks are working, or at least that the argument against them is overstated. Belgium coach Rudy Garcia said plainly that for him, the break is a coaching break more than a cooling break, and that it is very important. He acknowledged that if his team is in good flow, the break can interrupt that, but he said the net value for him is positive. He has 3 minutes to reorganize, reassess, and address specific tactical issues that he would not have the opportunity to address until halftime. Brazil boss Carlo Ancelotti said after his team's opening draw with Morocco, the match in which Brazil found themselves behind, that the first half hydration break enabled him to deliver fresh instructions at a moment when his team needed them. That was for Ancelotti a direct, practical benefit in a critical match situation. Mauricio Pochettino, the USA manager, said the breaks are useful during hot afternoon matches. He acknowledged the universal application is what generates most of the frustration, but he positioned the breaks as a reasonable precaution given the genuine heat risk across multiple American venues. Even Panama's coach, whose team played in Toronto where the weather was in the low 70s, temperatures that pose no heat risk to professional athletes, said that while he couldn't fight the rule, his team had used the break for corrections. He made it work. And there is a scientific argument in favor that is worth stating fairly. Researchers at the University of Connecticut's Corey Stringer Institute, a body that has spent decades studying heat illness in athletes, co-signed a letter to FIFA supporting the introduction of breaks at this tournament. They noted that the wet bulb globe temperature threshold above which the human body's cooling mechanisms begin to break down is approximately 35 degrees Celsius, and that at that level, the cognitive and physical consequences for a professional footballer in the 90-minute period of a competitive match are genuine and documented. The argument is not that breaks are wrong. The argument is that breaks should be conditional on conditions. What do you think? Should FIFA apply the hydration breaks based on temperature and venue, or should they remain mandatory across all matches for consistency? Leave your answer in the comments. This is a genuinely divided question, and the range of coaching opinions alone shows how complex it is. Because here is where we arrive, on the 29th of June, with the round of 32 now underway and the stakes of every match dramatically elevated. The group stage has been a stress test for this policy. The results are not clean. In hot, open-air venues, players have welcomed the breaks. In air-conditioned stadiums, players, fans, and coaches have found them unnecessary, momentum-killing, and commercially suspicious. The booing in the stands has become a growing trend, identifiable enough that multiple outlets have written about it specifically. Social media has generated viral content mocking the breaks, including AI-generated videos of national teams having culture-specific snacks during the pauses. The noise against the breaks 3 weeks in is louder than the noise in favor, and the specific combination of critics, Van Dijk, Deschamps, Bielsa, Tuchel, Solbakken, supported by meteorological analysis and consumer rights advocates who have connected the breaks explicitly to FIFA's broadcast revenue model, represents a coalition that is hard to dismiss as simple grumbling. As the knockout stage begins and the matches become higher stakes, every momentum shift, every goal scored shortly after a hydration break restarts play, every moment where a team that was under pressure has 3 minutes to reorganize and then comes out and scores, all of those moments will be scrutinized through the lens of this debate. The breaks will not stay in the background. They will be part of the story of every match they touch. FIFA has not announced any intention to review the policy during the tournament. It was announced in December with, as one report described it, a sense of finality. It will almost certainly run through to the final in New Jersey on the 19th of July.
But the conversation about whether it should return at future tournaments and whether the commercial and welfare arguments should be disentangled from each other, which they currently are not, is a conversation that is already being had by the people whose voices carry most weight in football's governance. Because a policy that unites Van Dijk, Bielsa, a Dartmouth biologist, a meteorologist, and the booing sections of 4 different stadiums across 3 countries, that is not a policy that will be quietly forgotten when the tournament ends. Football's round of 32 begins now. The stakes are maximum, and somewhere around the 22nd minute of the first half of every match, a referee will blow his whistle and hold up the water droplet board. And the booing will tell you everything you need to know about where this debate currently stands.